Welcome everybody to the waiting room. We've got a great show lined up for you tonight. Our special guest is it Appel, Christian Appel?
It's Christian Apple. It's
just like the fruit.
It's spelled Appel, but
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
my
Christian.
grandma would be rolling her grave if I said Appel.
Sorry about that. So Christian Apple from the YouTube show Grave Time, which I was just telling Christian, I've been watching it for at least 3 or 4 years now. Back when I had the Cities of Blood podcast, I came across his channel, and it's really cool. One of the things that really struck me about your show is that in life, the people that a lot of the, some of the graves that you went to in life, these people were inaccessible to the public. You couldn't go see Lucille Ball in person. You couldn't see Bob Hope. You couldn't see, all these people who were huge major stars. But you know what? Anybody can just walk up to their grave right now. And they're the most accessible, more accessible now in death than they ever were when they were alive.
Yeah.
The great equalizer, death. So, anyways, I'm sure Paul's got a lot of questions. You want to kick it off, Paul?
Yes. Hey, welcome, Christian. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you.
One of the things I know, you do all these cemeteries, and it's just amazing, and all these notables that you go up to the grave, you give out the history and everything else. But have you ever been, and Zandine came with me, to the Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland, California. And the reason why I'm asking that is because it says you're such a cemetery historian. I know you would be interested to know that Elizabeth Short, AKA the Black Dahlia, is buried there. And Reverend Jim Jones, the Guyana victims of the People's Temple, are in a mass grave there. And then you have the Oakland Hells Angels, and their tombstones are just incredible. Just look at. That is a place I know would make an awesome video. Have you been there?
Okay, yeah. So I went there a couple of years ago. I was with some coworkers. We went out to oh gosh, I forgot the next city over, Alameda, and they have a pinball museum. So we went out there and played some pinball for a few hours, and then we parted ways. And then I figured, well, I'm not too far away from Oakland, so I want to see how far away I am from Mountain View. And when I looked it up on my phone, it's like, okay, I have an hour before they close. Yeah. So I got there, and I knew exactly ahead of time. I already did some little bit of research and tried to find the Black Dahlia. Couldn't find her grave. I knew it was on the side of the hill. And the Hells Angels, I forgot that they were in that cemetery. But there was a guy I was looking for, and I did a video about him. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. So, I actually overstayed my welcome, and when I realized that there was no one else around me, I started heading towards the gate, and the gates were closed. And I was like, I don't want to get stuck in the cemetery because, I mean, I've been stuck in the cemetery once, and that's not fun. So
that's how scary movies start.
Yeah, well, yeah, that and panic attacks. So yeah. I'm trying to, I know one of the other, Stanford, I can't remember his first name, but one of the big four, with the Transcontinental Railroad is buried there. That was a really cool thing, because I like that kind of history, like early California history. And I haven't used it in a while, but I have that paranormal app on my phone. I think it's called SLS Camera. And it has an SLS camera, but I think it's called like the SLS app or something like that. And I went ahead and used it there in the cemetery when I was there, and I got like a creepy like stick figure thing next to someone's old tombstone. But I could never really tell if that app really ever really gave legitimate
or it was like the Pokemon app.
Yes. I even emailed the guy. I said, okay, so is this all registered like Pokemon or whatever? And he said, no, it's for, his thing was, it's for real ghost hunting. So I said, okay. And I've, there were times when that app worked, and there's other times when I couldn't I couldn't tell if it was giving me an accurate reading or
Did,
not.
did you say Stanford was in that cemetery?
Yes,
There's an interesting story with him. Is you know how he decided to turn his home into the college that it is now?
no, I don't know the story.
His son had died tragically at a very young age, something like 17, 18 years old, and I forget exactly the circumstances, but he was greatly affected by it. And supposedly his son's spirit ghost came to him one night while he was in a study, and because of that visitation, he decided to make his home a college for so that young men could get educations. And that's the whole story of how Stanford, college became Stanford College.
Okay.
The other interesting thing is about Stanford that I know. There's quite a few interesting things about this guy, but one of them is that motion pictures were created because of him. What happened is he hired a guy. God, I wish I could remember this guy's name. So I know some. If anybody ever watches this, they'll beat me up for it. But the guy who created 24 frames a second is a famous Edward Muybridge, a famous photographer. He used to get all the big panoramic pictures of like San Francisco and I think Yosemite. And this is going back to the late 1800s, right? Well, there was a bet that they had going on that they said, people didn't know whether horses, all four of their hooves, left the ground while they were running or not, or whether there was always one hoof on the ground while they were running.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So in order to prove that, he is Stanford, to settle this bet that he had, he asked Muybridge, he says, is there a way that you can photograph a horse and see whether all of his hoofs come off the ground while he's running full trot? And so they first tried it in Sacramento, and I don't think he had enough camera. There's something that didn't quite work out with it. It looked too much like a drawing. And then they did it again down at Stanford's Ranch, which is now the college. And what he did was he set up strings, 24 cameras in a row with strings attached to each one. And as the horse ran through each string, it snapped a picture. And he timed it out, to where it turned out to be 24 pictures in 1 second. And that's how motion pictures became. That's how they got the perfect moving picture. And so that was the very first motion picture ever. And it's how we came up with 24 frames a second, which we used all the way until everything went digital. It started going 30 frames a second, but still, I mean, the people who want that film look still use 24 frames a second. The other thing that's really interesting about him is that Muybridge himself got away with murder, and it was because of Stanford's money and attorneys. Apparently, Muybridge had a young wife that was really a lot younger than he was, and she was having an affair, I think, with some type of cavalry officer, some guy, and she actually had a child by this guy. But she led Muybridge to believe that it was his kid, and Muybridge loved him, was raising him as his own, everything else. And then he found out the truth, and so he hopped like 2 stagecoaches and a horse, and took it was like a 2-day ride up to where this guy was at, way up in the gold fields. And he just walked right up to the cabin where the guy was staying. As soon as the guy opened the door, he just shot him right in the face, killed him. And then he got exonerated in court. They had a trial and everything else, and he got away with it. So yeah, I love Sacramento history. I love California history. It is even though it's probably one of the youngest states, I guess, that's in the continent, it's still maybe the most fascinating because of the gold rush. And people don't realize that the largest slaughter of Native Americans in the whole country happened in Sacramento. There's over 200,000 of them were slaughtered in a short 10-year period of time from the time the gold rush happened until it kind of waned out and the railroad came through. So a lot of ghosts in that town.
There is a lot of history in Sacramento. It's amazing. And I know Christian's been to the Franklin Cemetery, which Alexander Hamilton Willard of the Lewis and Clark expedition is actually buried there. And I'm pretty sure Christian's also too. I think it's the East Lawn Cemetery where Morgan Earp of the OK Corral is buried there. Am I wrong about that, Christian, or am I right?
So yeah, East Lawn, they're on Folsom Boulevard. It's Jasper Earp It's their brother's half brother, and his son is actually named after his uncle Virgil, and he's buried in the Sacramento City Cemetery, right across from the volunteer firefighters section where the big bill is. Yeah, so that's pretty cool that we have a couple Earps buried in Sacramento. That's pretty dang cool.
And it's pretty damn cool. The Lewis and Clark expedition
Yeah,
that Alexander Hamilton Willard. I mean, that is amazing. When I first saw that gravesite, it blew me away. Wow, that's some total history right there.
You know, there's a school downtown Sacramento. You know where the Sutter's Fort is?
yes,
Kind of trying to think like east, west, south, but kind of across from the front of Sutter's Fort, and you know, I don't know what's over the freeway, but over a wide street, there's an elementary school over there, and that was where one of the very first cemeteries in Sacramento was. And they supposedly moved the graves, but really didn't. It's
yeah. So that was technically the first cemetery in Sacramento. It was called New Helvetia, which obviously means New Switzerland. And I believe in 1952, they dug the bodies. They took some of them and buried them at East Lawn there on Folsom Boulevard in a mass grave. And then the others were buried throughout the Sacramento City Cemetery.
didn't they give away the headstones? They for people's gardens. I think I remember hearing about that. You know.
There were so I think yes, that is true. Either they were stolen or they were given away, or it was just like they lost. You know, some of these people were being buried in mass graves, so it's like, well, what do we do with these tombstones? So they probably just put them on the curb and said, "Hey, they're free." You know, I mean that sucks because there's still you know, it's interesting. I came across a story from probably 2010 where someone was doing some renovating in their backyard. They lived somewhere near Sacramento High School. There in Oak Park, and they unearthed this tombstone, and they thought, well, someone was buried in their backyard. Well, that's not the case. They were able to trace the tombstone to New Helvetia Cemetery.
Yeah,
which was quite interesting.
You've heard about that guy who was digging out his garage in San Francisco and found a glass coffin with a little girl inside of it?
No, I've never heard that one.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, there's a guy that was like renovating his garage, and they had dug out the garage, and there was like from the late 18 or mid 1800s, there was a glass coffin, child's coffin with a little girl in it, perfectly preserved. And it turns out that there was a cemetery where his neighborhood was, and they just built houses right over top of them. And I think you ought to do a video on just graves that have been lost, graveyards that have been built over. It's not just Sacramento. It's not just San Francisco. It's certainly not just California. Throughout this whole country, people have this idea that, when I'm dead, I'm going to be buried and it'll be my family plot, and you'll be able to go see it 200, 300, 400 years from now. And the reality is anybody you know or have ever known or knew you is going to be dead within 100 years. And after that, you know, like New Orleans, for example, those crypts are rented for like 100 years. And then after that, you know, if there's anybody alive that's related to this person, they get the option. Do you want to buy another 100 years? If not, we're throwing out the bones, kind of thing. And so there is no forever. There is no, oh, we're going to keep your body and your tomb sacred. I mean, the Egyptians proved that one. But I've even seen in New York, I remember reading a story where there's a bridge in New York, and down at the footing on the New Jersey side of this bridge, they found tons and tons of tombstones. And it turns out the same thing. They'd just plowed over this graveyard, and they threw the tombstones in the river as kind of like jetties to stop shore erosion. And so like little kids and fishermen are down there casting lines, and they're looking down as like, beloved wife of what? You know, so it's interesting. I find it fascinating. I really think it's an interesting topic. The non-permanence, I guess, of graves.
You know, since you said that, Phil, I want to ask Christian, in response and chime in with what he said. Do you think when they disturb a cemetery like that, historically, have you found out that that causes more activity, or is it that the people are gone? It doesn't make a difference. I mean, and sometimes the sacred burial grounds. What does that fit in with as far as historically? Have you found out when they do that to things get disturbed more, or how does that go?
I am not the slightest expert in any of that. Um, Gosh, that's a difficult question. I mean, I think Paul would be the expert on that, but I do think, from my understanding, I think when it comes to Indian burial ground, I mean,
Right, right.
I think that it seems like everything I've ever heard about sacred Indian burial grounds, especially Native Americans here in America, it
Yeah.
seems like whenever you disrupt their sacred place of burial, um, it seems like not great things happen. Now I can't speak for everyone else, like you and I, or our relatives and stuff. Uh,
Sure, sure.
I mean, I think it just differs on who it is and who the individual is, and maybe how they live their life. I mean, so many different
Yeah.
factors. For instance, yeah, Sacramento. I mean, there's probably so many Indian burial sites in downtown alone that we don't even
Yeah.
know of. For instance, I worked for the state of California for the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, formerly known as the Board of Equalization, and
Oh, okay.
our building was located at 450 N Street, and that's pretty dang close to the Sacramento River,
Yeah, yeah.
and we've had so many problems in that building with black mold, windows
Wow.
out, floods on like some of the there's 24 floors in that building.
Big.
I've encountered my own strange paranormal things in that building that when I ask other people, they just don't want to talk about it.
I
I mean,
bet.
uh,
Yeah,
so yeah, I have no proof that there was an Indian burial ground there,
yeah.
but there's just so many ever since that building opened. I mean, even 6 months after they opened that building, the guy went in there with a gun and took hostages and ended up getting shot by.
Wow, just calamity, huh? I see that.
I mean, and even let's just even say even past the Native American burial ground that could possibly be there. I used to
Yeah,
be in
yeah.
Japantown, and the Japanese were basically taken out of their area.
Wow.
That whole area was Japantown, and then when you had a lot of the Japanese put into camps, and then when they were released, a lot of
Yeah.
them get their land or their property back. So I'd say a lot of downtown has got to be haunted. It's got to have a lot of bad mojo just from the Native Americans, and then how the Japanese were treated, and then anything and everything in between that.
You want to hear something? You know the American River, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, anybody who's been to Sacramento knows about the American River, and the American River and the Sacramento, confluence is right there where they come together. The original name of the Spanish name of the American River before the Americans came and started squatting on it and it was renamed was Rio de la Suarez or something like that. I know I'm getting the name wrong, but the translation was literally River of Sores or River of Wounds. Now, there's two. The theory, the one that most historians say is true, is that this was because they named it Sacramento, and the Spanish were very religious, and so they named it after the 5 wounds of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
However, I wish I knew the name off the top of my head. I can look it up, but the name, actually, the old name of this American River actually translates closer to River of Sores, not wounds.
Mm.
Now, this makes more sense when you realize that before the Spanish ever got there, there was a before what's his name, Sutter got there, there was or I think it was a Russian expedition, fur trapping expedition that had went up the river there and actually brought smallpox to the native population and wiped out most of them. And so by the time the Spanish got there and came upon the Sacramento, the first site of Sacramento River, was all they saw was bodies all along the shoreline. Because when you're dying and you have fever, you're trying to get to the water, and people lived close to the water anyway. Because I mean, without water you can't live, right? You can go a week or two without food, but you can't go 3 days without water. So the river, especially the American River, because it was freshwater, was vital, and that's where the Indian mounds are. There's a park there along the Sacramento River on the north side near North Sacramento that had Native American mounds, Maidu mounds, things like that. So, anyways, so that river itself wasn't always the American River. It was originally the river of Source.
And really near Sacramento, there's also too the River of Skulls, because the settlers, when they went over there, they found all these Native American skulls along that river. And that river is supposed to be really haunted. And I went there once, and it's a kind of a spooky place. I wanted a Christian also too. He's a part-time paranormal investigator. I know he's also worked with Zandine a couple on some of the some cases. He also too did a video on the Sacramento Mothman, and that's how I met Christian.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, during COVID, I was still going into work daily. I didn't stay home. I still went to work. I even reported to work the day that we had the riots. Did get the phone call. I wasn't supposed to come and work, but I still came to work. That's how dedicated I am. So anyway, not a workaholic, but just, anyway, sometimes when we had downtime at work, I would just surf the net, just looking for anything and everything that's just as strange as can be. And came across this story. I typed in cryptids in Sacramento. And I came across this story about this guy that claims to say that he saw Mothman. And so it was from 2009, I believe.
Yes, 2009.
Okay, 2009. And then the following year, that TV show did a little segment. He made an appearance. Monster Quest, that's what it was called.
Right.
So I tracked down that episode because the whole episode was about Mothman. Like they were trying to, they talked about the story. They tried to like debunk it. Like, if people drove by, could they determine, the size of this thing? And did its eyes really glow, red? Anyway, so I just thought it was a very fascinating story. I think I reached out to you and I had asked some questions and you told me, you said, well, I'm not really sure, about his story, but I know that he saw something. And it was just really intriguing. And that's basically where it started. I was like, hey, I'm going to take a different detour from cemeteries to really, really strange stuff that I've never physically seen with my own eyes. But this is eyewitness testimony. I thought I'd just give it a shot and see what happened. And I sent it off to you, and you really liked it. And I felt quite honored, for someone like yourself who handles a lot of paranormal investigations in the Sacramento area, and to watch my video and comment on it and say that you liked it. It was a huge honor. I mean, I felt, it was just really cool.
Hey man, your knowledge, Christian, of history is it's like a superpower. You know why I say that? Because when I just asked you that question, even though it wasn't your expertise, you had enough knowledge of history to see, the cross-reference like out of nowhere. That's pretty cool.
Well, thank you. I keep a lot of worthless information up here. Makes for great conversations like this.
Podcast.
Cool, and have you also investigated cemeteries out of state?
Yes. So just for the record, I love to explore cemeteries. I never go there thinking I'm going to have a paranormal encounter. I'm not going there for looking for ghosts. I typically just either go to explore, or I have like a whole like cheat sheet that I've like written up about, some of the key people that are buried there. And then something happens. If something happens, then it's like, okay, well, this is an added bonus. So a couple of years ago, I went out to visit a second cousin who I had never, well, I think I never met before. She said she had met me, but I couldn't retain that. That's information I didn't retain, no family member. But
Ain't no
And I had
break.
an opportunity one day to explore, and I went to explore the Eugene Pioneer Cemetery there in Oregon, and it was a hot day. It was definitely a hot day. It was muggy, and I was there because they had a Civil War section. They had a Civil War statue, much like the Sacramento City Cemetery, and I'm just very much enamored with Civil War history. And there was a guy also buried there. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but um, one of his hobbies was basically tracking down the lost graves of Civil War veterans and reuniting them with their family members. And so he got buried with with honors, basically. He never served our country, but he got buried with honors because of his willingness to reconnect Civil War veterans with family members. So I wanted to basically showcase him because of his willingness to do that. I feel like in some way I'm kind of doing the same thing. I mean, not as a hobby like he did, only devout to that. But while I was there, I was filming, and it was like super quiet because all I could hear like in the distance was some kind of like crickets or something, and then across the street is one of the universities. I couldn't tell you which one it is, but anyway, and so like, what's that?
Said it was crickets, huh?
I heard like crickets or something was like flying around. I don't know if they were locusts or what they were. I don't know what they were. They're really noisy, but when you walk near one of them, they got super quiet. And typically, I don't really say much when I go to cemeteries, except when I stand in front of someone's grave and I have something to say. But it was just really quiet. I was recording with my phone, and when I got back home and I reviewed my audio, I had picked up an EVP. And
Nice.
wasn't even there ghost hunting. It was just like, and that's why I say that's an added bonus. I did a little video about it, tried to get the little clip in place, and I asked people, what do you think this thing is saying? And it was interesting. People put it, I guess, on YouTube. I forgot it exists, but you could put it on closed caption. And so some people put on closed caption and said, oh, well, this is what it was saying. And like, okay, it still makes no sense to me. So, sometimes that's how EVPs are sometimes. Sometimes they just make no sense. It just sometimes it's gibberish, and sometimes there's maybe something to be said.
Yeah. Christian, we're going to get cut off pretty soon.
Okay.
Phil's going to give us another link to continue on with this interview.
All righty.
I just sent that to you guys, so there should be a new meeting link in there for you. We got about 4 minutes left on this one.
Okay.
3 minutes or so. We're too cheap to pay for it. Sorry. Go ahead, Zandy.
Hey, I hear you.
Christian, real fast before we get cut off. Thanks, Phil. Before I was just talking to you, I was really I thought the special you did on the Union Army is really cool because a lot of people don't know, they don't even know the difference between the two sides, who the generals were, especially where I grew up. It's a lot of people that, they just don't know much about it, the cemetery. So I appreciated that, man, because it gave some history about some people that were like abolitionists. And as I was telling you, to me, the abolitionist represents like a lot of people who are just like today. People don't like certain things, and a lot of minorities don't really get the full story on people that made sacrifices and that didn't even like that slavery crap. So I just thought that that special you did was really enlightening. Right on for that, man. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate the nice comment.
Yeah, and Christian, just keep on doing what you're doing because we love your videos. Your videos are yes.
Thank
I
you.
don't want your
I dig the music in the beginning.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah.
It's kind of like 80. It reminds me of like 80s, early 80s retro stuff.
Yeah, anyways, yeah.
That's incredible.
So what got you into doing graveyards? And we're gonna get cut off, but we can pick it up afterwards too. What got you into doing graveyards?
My grandpa, his name was Clifford Appel Sr. He passed away before I turned 1 year old. And so basically throughout most of my childhood, I would go with my parents or my aunt and grandma and visit his grave. And he's buried at Camellia Cemetery out there off of Jackson Highway. And so I think that's basically kind of like where it really began. And then 1 year only, 4th grade. I went to Pleasant Grove Elementary School there in Elk Grove, and next door is the Pleasant Grove Cemetery, and we took a field trip there. And so that was the second cemetery I ever got to go to. And who knows? That probably stirred my interest. Definitely when I got my driver's license, I was definitely doing a lot more exploring. Going to visit my grandpa's grave, and I was like, "Hey, let's go check out another cemetery," and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Hey, Christian, I got to tell you real quick before we get cut off. The Sacramento Mothman, there's now been 7 witnesses to it. People are going over there and seeing something. They're calling it Mothman, and they're blogging it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So something's going on over there.
Anybody get hurt?
No, nobody's getting hurt. Yeah.
Okay.
They're just saying something weird over there.
Mothman doesn't see that. From what I understand, he's not that nice, huh?
He predicts terrible things like bridge failures. So, quick fact: it was Rio de las Lagas with 2 L's, Llagas. That's River of Source, American River. And we just touched on the Mothman before we got cut off. Now we're back. And we were talking about how you got into graveyards from the time you were a little kid. I guess you were fascinated with them when you first went to your grandfather's, where your grandfather is buried. Did you do a video about that graveyard? Because that sounds really familiar. I've been watching your stuff for about 3 years, and I'm wondering, did you do a video on that particular graveyard?
Yeah, I've done a few videos there. Yeah, when the 100-year anniversary of his death, I did a video, and same with my grandma. And there's an actor buried probably about 150 feet away from them. I can't remember his name, but he was on the TV show Peter Gunn, and he's the only celebrity buried there. So I thought, hey, what the heck, let's throw him a bone and get, hopefully other people come out and visit his grave and, say, hey, I got to visit the grave of, a movie star or TV show guy or whatever.
How many graveyards have you filmed at so far?
How many cemeteries in general, or?
Yeah, what they actually have episodes on. I haven't. You just did a recent episode that popped up, but that's the first time I've seen it pop up in a while. It seemed like you took a break for a while, or?
Yeah, I guess you could say I took a break. I've been kind of, for the past probably year and a half, I've been very easily distracted. I put a lot of work in my videos, and a lot of heart and soul, a lot of time, a lot of my own money, and I just, sometimes I'm deeply disappointed the how many people watch my videos. And then I hear people say, "Oh, you do great videos. You speak very clearly. You have a lot of information, and it's like, man, like, that's great. And I love those compliments because that's what fuels me to continue on. I just wish that I just wish sometimes my videos would get at least more than 100 views because that's a little bit more incentive. I mean, there's people out there that put less effort into videos, doing the same kind of content as I do, and they get more views. I'm like, no, I get it. I don't like George Clooney. I'm not a cute guy, doing these videos.
No, but Christian, you know what? I mean, just to chime in with you, a lot of people I know think about that little Rubik's Cube a lot. And like, sometimes you wonder, like, they ask you to pay and partner up. So now you got people that are going to start making money off your videos. You don't even know who they are. TikTok, all the people, if you don't monetize them, they start. That's number one. Number two, it's like there's some kind of algorithm, or if you decide to endorse their products, and if you pay money, there's ways. But the one example, there was a band that I knew, and one of the guys that worked out with, it was a bass player. He was much older than the guys that started the band. And I told him, I says, yeah, man, like, so I remember your videos used to get like maybe 300-400 hits. You're getting like 13,000-14,000. He goes, yeah, man, these young guys, they showed me what to do. I says, well, what are they doing? And how many did they get? And he says, well, they get like 50, 60,000. And he said, and they get it all the time. And I said, well, what do they do? he said when he met them, they told him, "Hey, stick with us. We'll show you." And what they pay, one of them pays like $38 a month at the time for some service. He posts. He has some other college groupies. They do a lot of things that generate that, but even that's not a lot considering some people, go viral. But it's I'm like you. It's some kind of algorithm, but there's some other way because there's people with good content, and then you never see them at all. So don't feel alone, brother. I mean, there's got to be some kind of code you can crack.
It's
Don't
like
give
hitting
up.
it's like hitting the lottery. I did the
You think
cities
it's like
of
hitting a
light.
lottery, Phil?
It
Okay.
is. It is. I mean, Christian's right. I mean, if you look like Jake Paul, or if you got a niche, if you one
Yeah.
of the Kardashians or something like that, and now there's celebrities doing their content too. But there's a guy named Mr. Ballin out there. I guess he's an ex Navy SEAL. He
Ballin.
does a lot of things there. There's that guy you showed me who does the he's a ex inmate who does videos about
Oh yeah.
how he wants to kill all the child molesters. And I mean, there's a certain niche that once in a while it'll pop, and then somebody will get noticed. And then if there's a podcast called Soft White Underbelly where he just does interviews.
Yeah, the underbelly. I saw that. Yeah.
So I mean, there's different ones out there, and it's just kind of like hitting the lottery. I had a guy, a good friend of mine, to co-host that podcast with me, and we did it for about a year. And the most we got was 7, maybe 10,000 views on a single episode. And he was doing most of the work as far as scheduling guests, getting authors. Well, all we had was authors, but
Yeah.
7 to 10. You're not making any money with that. I mean, it's sure it sounds better than 100, but it's really no difference at all because you're not getting a dime from YouTube. It's not like the early days of YouTube where they actually paid you. You're not getting anything. You have to, you have to sell products or
That's crazy. What about TikTok?
TikTok is.
They
I
making
don't even know how they make money from TikTok, but these kids
People
seem to
act like
figure it
they're
out.
making
And I
money.
don't know how they do it.
Yeah. People act like they're making money. I'm like, how? And it's there's a lot of musical artists that like you've heard of. They're not doing anything, and then you've got these guys in the background with like 6 and 8 cars and houses and cash, and you're like, how is this? How is this happening? It's just crazy.
I know a few guys that have actually rented Lamborghinis, done a video with their Lamborghini, and then got tons of views because of that.
Okay.
And it was that fake it till you make it kind of thing that they put it into practice, and it kind of worked for them. So I still think it's like hitting the lottery. I mean, you put in a lot of time, and sometimes you get nothing. And I got frustrated with about a year on the other one.
And
So
I can see Christian's
understand.
frustration. I mean, they have this Chick-fil-A girl who does videos where she's just making faces and she's getting buku hits. And here Christian's putting all this hard work. And I'm a big fan because I love history. I know Phil loves history. I know Zandine loves history. So yeah, we're going to gravitate towards Christian and not look at the Chick-fil-A girl who's making stupid faces, And I'm sorry, I'm not into watching stupidity on videos which do mask all these hits. So
I asked my great aunt. I asked my great aunt. I said, do you watch YouTube? She says, boy, what? She said, are you crazy? She says, I don't get up every day and watch people make a fool of themselves. I can see that anytime. Are you crazy? And I thought about it. So that was her. She said she doesn't want to watch people making a fool of themselves every day.
You know what though? What's really interesting now is go ahead and pick up your phone and look up what movies are playing in the movie theater now. There's like 4. There's like 3 or 4 movies out.
Nobody makes movies anymore.
No, everything is going directly to Netflix or to Amazon Prime or to to Hulu.
And they find a lot of old stuff too and put it like it's new too.
Well, I love the old stuff. Yeah, that's almost all I watch. That Tubi has a lot of that too for free.
I need more horror.
And you look at Boys. Okay, Boys right now is really hot. Everybody's watching it. And if you watch it, it's just people exploding. Their heads are exploding. The people are walking into penises and exploding. I mean, and that's what people want to watch. They don't want much history.
To
damn
to
it.
be to be fair, they're the reason why they like the boys, Paul, is that Marvel has oversaturated the world with superhero
Good point,
movies.
Phil.
They've been going on 20 years now. They just been pumping them out and pumping them out. And one superhero, they don't have enough superheroes. They got to create one. Oh, we don't have a female Spider-Man. Let's create Madam Web. And it's not bad enough that we just got one Madam Web. We got to have 3 young girls under her that also have Spidey powers, and one bad guy who's got Spidey powers. And it's just like, give it a fucking rest already. I love Peter Parker. That's great. You could have left it alone in the 70s as far as I was freaking concerned. And so that's why movies like Deadpool, which are anti-superhero movies, are becoming popular. And The Boys is an anti-superhero show. Now that Gen whatever thing that you told me that it was a spinoff of The Boys, that was
Gen
terrible
V.
because Gen V, because that was an all-inclusive piece of shit that pandered to, oh God, now we need to have transgender superheroes because we got to include everybody. You know, you can't leave anybody out.
Stop it, Phil. I'm gonna laser you.
Yeah, right. And that's why The Boys does so well, because the Homelander character is like a total narcissist, and he's fucking and he doesn't give a shit. My favorite scene, I think, was season 1. They showed him on top of some skyscraper building outside, and he's jerking off. He's like on top of a skyscraper, and he look at he's just jerking off.
Oh my God.
I lost it, but I mean, you can't pick a more narcissistic thing to do than, you know, just get on the top of the tallest building and just fucking jerk off to the world.
And his motto is, I can do what the fuck I want.
Exactly. And people love that, you know, that's which is exactly why Trump's going to be the next president again.
Oh yeah, yeah.
People love that.
People
But
love that.
I gotta get back to Christian.
Yep.
Christian, okay. I've done some traveling, and I saw the first female serial killer, her gravesite, Lavinia Fisher in South Carolina, and I gravitate. It's so funny. I can go on vacation, but I'll gravitate towards a tombstone. And when I was in Paris, I saw the tomb of Napoleon Bonaparte. And I went to Billy the Kid, William Bonney's grave in New Mexico. And I saw the Voodoo Queen Marie Laveau at St. Louis Cemetery #1. So when you go on vacation, do you gravitate towards a cemetery? I don't know why.
No, Paul, that's just you.
That's just
Yeah, no, I'm 100% guilty of that. For instance, probably a great example of this. Last August, the band that I played drums for, we went on tour for about a week and a half, and I knew we were going to be in Spokane, so I was like, okay, there's got to be some really interesting people buried in a cemetery nearby. I know the guys in my band are not into that, but you know, they do like me telling the stories every so often, and so I found out that this preacher was buried in the Spokane cemetery. I can't remember the name of the cemetery, but his name was John G. Lake, and he had an incredible gift of healing. And since the church I belong to is like Pentecostal, it's like kind of within my wheelhouse. And it was one of the many people I kind of like looked up to in their preaching, and just in the amazing supernatural things for God that they did that are just absolutely out of this world crazy. So the opportunity to go visit his grave, I kept saying, "Oh, I got to check out this guy's grave," and then finally we did. It was raining that day, but I didn't care. So we stopped by. I said, "Hey, just give me 20 minutes. I just want to check out this guy's grave." And but yeah, anytime I go somewhere, I always want to find out the cemeteries in the area. Do as much research to find out who's there. I'm not necessarily looking for the famous people or the historical people. Sometimes I'm looking for everyday people like you and I who have an interesting story. Maybe they might have died tragically, or they lived an interesting life, or something interesting or unusual happened to them, that I think that story should be told.
absolutely.
You ever look at the zodiac or the birthdays, anything like that when you're walking by them? Anything? Because when I used to like look at the birthdays, I'm like, oh, there's a Capricorn, there's a Pisces. So weird things when you look at the tombstones, you know.
I do look at the imagery that's on there. Like the fraternal organizations, their emblems and stuff like that, their symbols.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like,
Like the Masonic ones.
ah,
Yeah, it's interesting. Like sometimes I come across some stuff that I don't know, and I'll take a picture of it, and I'll send it to a friend of mine that's part of the Sacramento Historical Society. Ask her because she used to do. Her name is Tina. She used to do tours at the Sacramento City Cemetery. So if I come across something I don't know what it is, but I'm very curious to know, I'll message her a picture, and she typically gets back to me right away and tells me what it is. And
that's cool.
but
Look,
yeah, I mean, you find so many interesting things on people's graves. I mean, just not just the sayings. Sometimes it's the scriptures they use. Sometimes it's pictures. It was quite interesting. I went to this cemetery in Fresno to see. Gosh, I can't remember. His first name was Lonnie. I can't remember his last name, but he was the lead singer of Redbone. And myself being Native American, I was really excited to see another Native American's grave. But not only that, like a musician like myself. And I walked around the cemetery, and there's like so many people on their headstones with like the 49ers or the Raiders logo on their tombstone. I was just like, I mean, I've seen it before, but never like. I mean, this cemetery had a lot of that. A lot of sports teams like on their tombstones.
the sports, right?
Sports teams
never
or
seen
Grateful
that.
Dead. I was just like, wow, this is like I'd never seen this
Wow.
before.
Was it Lolly Vegas?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And also,
You know about that film?
What's that?
You know about that, man?
I know "Come and Get Your Love," Redbone, but I just looked it up just because I wanted to know who he was talking
sorry.
about.
I said his name wrong, but yeah, thank you for the correction.
and Phil is ending. If you guys don't know it, Christian's also too in a musical band. What's the name of your band?
Nice.
So the name of the band is called Light the Way, and it's
Christian
a
rock?
pop punk band. Yeah, so it's a Christian band. We're not gonna
I like.
lyrically, the music is about just like everyday struggles and just like how we're able to get through things with just God's grace. And but we do have some goofy songs. It's not always like doesn't come off like spiritual or religious all the time. It's just fun music. And
Right.
for those that don't know what pop punk is, you're watching this, I always tell people just think Green Day or Blink-182. Even though we don't sound like that, that's just the best example of what pop punk is. So
You had
And you guys went on tour too.
Interesting.
What states did you go to?
we did the Pacific Northwest,
Okay.
and I'm guilty. When we got to Washington and we stopped, I forgot where we stopped, and I was wearing my shirt that had like Bigfoot and had a UFO on it. And so, of course, when I stop somewhere, we're in the woods, like in Washington, I have to ask, has anyone
Yeah.
seen Bigfoot? Like that's just I'm guilty of that. So, of course, when I told the guys in my band, they all roll their eyes, but they know me well enough. So, but yeah, we played Idaho. It was the first time I've ever been to Idaho, and
What part?
we went to Boise.
Okay, because I was up in Coeur d'Alene. How'd you
Okay.
like it? How'd you like it, man?
It was different. I mean, I don't really what to say. I mean, I thought we were going to drive into Idaho because it's like, Idaho's basically become the promised land, like Coeur d'Alene. And I thought I was going to drive in there. It was just going to be nothing but like crosses and Trump flags, but it wasn't.
Yes.
It was the complete opposite. I mean, you get off into the more countryside of stuff, you kind of see more stuff like that.
like
Downtown Boise is the complete opposite. And honestly, I wasn't really there for really any of that stuff. I was just there to play a show and
Yeah.
check out some record stores and any other strange things the guys at the band would let me do. Yeah.
I heard that.
You
I heard that.
have you done 23andMe to check your ancestry, or ancestry.com?
No, I actually have a kit that I bought like 6 years ago. It's still sitting in my kitchen. Because I'm curious to know exactly what percentage I am of Native American.
Yeah,
But I do know that the tribe that I'm affiliated with is called Waliki, and it's based out of Crescent City.
Okay, so California.
Yeah.
Just curious about that. I'd always heard stories from my grandmother about the whole Cherokee thing, and I did my DNA, and I came out with 0.
Well,
You know, although I was 2% African, so I was like, okay, I'll take that.
Hey,
Hey,
that's
I did ancestry.com.
you got to talk
And,
about that, you know.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, ancestry.com. And my mother told me that I was not Native American. And so when I took the DNA test, I found out I was 11% Native American.
nice.
Yeah. So, and she would always just deny it. My dad used to say, yeah, she's got Indian blood in her. No, I don't. Dad, she get all mad and everything. It's like, what? You're not proud of it? What's up?
You want to know what's interesting is when I did mine, came out with 0, and the grandmother that I'd heard was Cherokee. She always, we always thought she looked like, you know, that you remember that 70s commercial where they show the Indian crying because somebody threw garbage on the ground?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
turns out that guy's name was Chief Iron Eyes Cody,
Iron Ice Cody. Yep.
and
Oh.
he was Italian. He had 0 Native American in him. He was 100% Italian from Sicilian parents, came out of New Orleans,
Mind blown.
but he adopted that persona so much
Yeah.
so that like he married a Native American woman, he adopted Native American children.
Mm.
He was in like 100 movies, and he always played an Indian. You know, I mean, to the day he died, that's what he was, and he stuck to it, even though the truth came out that he was an Italian. So the image we have in our heads of the Native American is actually an Italian guy, right? So my grandmother, we always thought, oh well, she looks like the guy in the commercial, right? And she came from Georgia, from Augusta, Georgia, and grew up in the 40s and 50s.
I got people
And
from
so when I did the ancestry though, she had a brother named Lori, and we always thought, boy, that's a weird name for a boy, right? Why would you name your boy Lori? And especially in Georgia, like Lori. But everything, you know, sounds a little weird with that Georgia accent. And so I did my my ancestry thing, and I found out that Lori's name was Lorenzo. And so and then when the ancestry came back, besides my father's side, I had a lot of Italian in me, and it just must have come from the other side too. And so
wow.
it just show you that around the time that my grandmother grew up and a little bit before that, it was cooler in Georgia to say that you were Cherokee than it was to say you were Italian. So they instead of just coming out and saying, "Oh yeah,
Hey, my son's half Italian, so I don't mind.
yeah," well, but in Georgia, you know that's clan country, especially back
understand.
then, right?
I got a lot of relatives in Georgia too, Noonan and Augusta. Noonan and Augusta, I got a lot of relatives.
I lived in Augusta for a while, but yeah. So, anyways, I just thought it was interesting that back then it was cooler to be a Native American than it was to admit that you had a little bit of Italian in you. And,
You know something? Everybody should get their DNA checked out and find out their long lost relatives. Because when I did it, I found out I was related to this guy in New Zealand who was an airplane instructor. And so I met him. I mean, I didn't meet him, but I mean, I met him online.
Yeah.
And also, too, when I went on vacation to Papeete, Tahiti, when I was over there, these people were calling me cousin. And I said, how come you guys call me cousin? They said, because you got Polynesian blood in you. I said, no, I don't. They go, you don't know it, but you do. And so when I did the ancestry.com, come to find out, not only did I have Native American Indian in me, but I also too got Polynesian blood in me. So it's totally amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, Christian.
Yeah.
Oh no! I'm sorry, Paul. I got a delay. I'm sorry.
No.
No, what were you saying? That's amazing, Paul. You never told me what you were.
Yeah.
well, Roberts doesn't give away much.
I know. Hey, but now, Christian, you know, I was gonna ask you, man. Have you ever been to the Bay Area, like Daly City, San Bruno, South San Francisco? Because like those whole cities were like all graveyards, and people that live in San Francisco, we know, like, soon as you cross this line, all the houses you see, like, it was like just a massive graveyard. And I wonder if if you've heard about it, but it's Cypress Lawn. There's like every nationality you could think of has their own cemeteries in this area. But
Zendine, did you go to the Daly City Chinese Cemetery?
oh yeah, I've been there many times. Oh, walk by, yeah,
Wow.
it's vast. I mean,
Check
you
this
have like
out.
mountains you can look over and see like crypts, things sticking out. It's incredible.
When I was in high school at Oceana High School in Pacifica, my high school friends used to grave rob at the Daly City Chinese Cemetery. And the reason why is because the Chinese were known to throw their jewelry and money into the grave of their
Ah.
loved one. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. In fact, it hit the newspapers that the Daly City Chinese Cemetery, there was grave robbing over there. Plus, it has stories that there was a UFO that landed there. There was a Bigfoot creature that was roaming around the cemetery.
Now I'd like to
Yeah.
see that. I
Yeah.
would want to see that, man.
Yeah. So it has all kinds of crazy stories.
Hey, Christian, what's the coolest graveyard you've been to, or the one that you? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you have some sentimental attachment to your first, but out of all the ones you've been to, what do you think was the coolest one?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I guess I'd go with the Hollywood
favorites.
Cemetery,
Which one?
the Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
Okay.
That I first went there with my brother in October of 2006 we took a vacation together, and for whatever reason I thought that's where the Three Stooges were buried, because it makes sense. It's the Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
Yeah,
This
right.
is where all Hollywood's buried. I didn't know. I just wanted to go and check it out, and we went there, and obviously that's not where they're buried, but we got to see Dee Dee Ramone from the Ramones, and
Wow.
they have Johnny Ramone buried there. Well, I mean, they have it's a statue. It's like what do they call it? Forgot what it's called off the top of my head. But anyways, when his wife passes away, she'll be cremated with his remains, and they'll be interred into the base of this statue. It's like a picture of him with the guitar and he's shredding.
I've seen a picture of it. Yeah.
And then, gosh, I'm trying to think who else is there. Don Adams from Get Smart. Also did the voice of Inspector Gadget for those of us who watched cartoons in the 80s.
Did you go to Marilyn Monroe's gravesite?
Yeah, now she's buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park, which is I don't know how far away it is from Hollywood Forever Cemetery. It's maybe 8 miles away, maybe 10 miles. And you wouldn't even know it's there because it's kind of secluded. There's a bunch of business complexes, and then some apartments, and then on the other side there's just like some regular houses. But yeah, Marilyn Monroe, my understanding was she's the very first celebrity to be buried in that cemetery, and then after that everyone else followed. That is
You did quite a few. Damn.
that one I was probably the most excited to visit, because that's where Rodney Dangerfield is buried. And
Greatest.
when Howard Stern used to be on the radio before he had to pay for a subscription to Sirius, he was on locally here in Sacramento on and it was 94.7, and it was called K Howard, because the owner of the radio station was a huge Howard Stern fan here in Sacramento, and named it K Howard. And it was like 24/7 Howard Stern. Some of the show that would air in the morning, the new episode, and then later on it'd be reruns of old shows. And so right before Rodney Dangerfield had passed away, he was a guest on the Howard Stern show, and it was just so cool to hear like a legend like this, who I had admired watching on TV, or through movies, like Easy Money, and
That's my favorite movie growing up, was Easy Money.
Easy Money. Oh, I have it on.
I have a dog named Julio. I named from Easy Money. The
I have it on
song.
VHS.
I love that.
I still collect VHS. So,
Nice.
but yeah, and then it was just crazy. Like I don't know, maybe 6 months after he was on, he passed away. They did this whole like in memoriam thing to him, And so I eventually found out where he was buried, and like, I gotta go visit his grave. Like, I heard him on the radio. I grew up watching his movies. Like, if there's any celebrity I have to see, it's Rodney Dangerfield. And it was just such a surreal thing to just stand there in front of this guy's grave. Now, I hope that he's buried there. But according to everybody, yes, he is buried there. Because sometimes you go visit a person's grave, and you're like, how do I know that they're really buried there? You know, especially a celebrity, but I think that's where they're buried. You know,
You said you mentioned Howard Stern show. Do you know where Eric the actor is buried?
yes, he is. I actually got to visit his grave about a year and a half ago. He's buried in Pleasanton. I don't remember the name of the cemetery. I know it's on a hill. And
You're on it. You're on it. Damn.
and then probably about 100 feet, roughly 100 feet away from him, is another celebrity or another person that's just known as a celebrity in that cemetery, and that was the original pianist for the Grateful Dead. I can't remember his name.
Pigpen.
Wow. And,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Christian,
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's a fame. Yeah. Damn, I'm a deadhead.
Okay.
Okay, you got a dead end right here. All right, all right.
They was
Christian.
just country. I love Working Man's Dead. That's favorite one. But sorry.
Hey, Christian,
Yo.
over in Yuba City, did you ever visit the gravesite of Juan Corona, the serial killer? And also, too, in an unmarked grave in Yuba City is Black Bart, the gentleman bandit. Did you ever head over there?
Okay. Juan Corona. No, I have not been there. I just recently read a story last week about someone who had a Bigfoot sighting in that same orchard, probably about 10 years before the murders. And so I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do a video about this, about the Bigfoot sighting, and then about the murders. I don't know. I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to do that or not. But Black Bart, I tried to get into the Marysville Cemetery, and unfortunately, it was locked. And I don't want to get in trouble for trespassing, so I'm gonna have to probably wait until. I mean, I even called. There's a number there. I called the number. No one ever responded. So I think I'm gonna have to wait until October when they open up the cemetery to everyone for a cemetery tour, because that's what a lot of cemeteries do during October because it's spooky. So
And they also see you mentioned the Three Stooges. I wrote an article about the Three Stooges because their ghosts were seen in Bensonhurst, New York. That's where they're from. So they're probably buried over there. I don't know.
I've been to Larry Fine's grave. He is buried at Forest Lawn, Glendale.
Okay.
And
Oh, wow.
so when you get into that mausoleum, they're very strict about photographs. And I had my phone with me. I grew up with the Three Stooges. I grew up watching a lot of slapstick. I'm here. I have to take a picture of this. Plus, one of the guys in my band is a huge Three Stooges fan. So I'm like, it wasn't to rub it in, but to say, hey, like, this is what I got to see. I want to share this with.
Oh, wise guy.
Wait. Shemp or Curly?
Wait, what's that?
Shemp or Curly?
Which one do I like?
That's the question.
Okay, Curly, of course.
Really?
Yeah.
I love them both, but
I
if you
do
go back
too,
and you watch Shemp, Shemp was really underrated. I loved Shemp. Shemp was freaking hilarious.
Phil, that's the hard way. Hey, Phil, did you know that they tried them at all different roles before they got to the one how it is now? You know, they tried like Larry as the lead. You know,
Yeah.
Shemp, they tried all of them. I didn't realize that. But and then weren't two of them related, or weren't all?
They're
of them?
all
they're
they
all
were
related.
four brothers. You had Mo, Larry, Curly, and Shemp. Shemp came before Curly. Then Shemp had like a nervous breakdown and left the group, I guess, so to
Okay.
speak. They brought Curly in. Curly ended up being the first one to die, I think. And then in the 60s, they made a comeback because they all ran out of money and they didn't get all that money from their previous work.
Yeah.
So they hired a guy named Curly Joe, who was not related at all,
yeah.
and he's like replaced Curly. But if you watch their stuff from the 60s, it's not the
same.
not the same.
Still wouldn't bother.
Did you see the one that had their mother on there? That episode where they have their mother and they have the pie.
There were a lot of pies, and
There's a lot
Yeah,
of
the mother was in the bed.
pie stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then she said, which one of my sons are gonna go out and give me the pie? So they were fighting over who's gonna like make their mom happy. That one was crazy. But yeah, I'm just like you guys. I used to come home from school, watch the same ones over and over. You know, and then you see some new ones. But
My favorite was I loved them, and I loved Abbott and Costello, and they
Oh
were,
yeah.
ooh, okay.
I watched TV with my grandfather. So what are we gonna watch? We're gonna watch all the old stuff that
What about Laurel and Hardy?
watch those too. And Little Rascals, Little Rascals.
Little Rascals. I was just gonna say Little Rascals. That was with the I used to see that with the Three Stooges where I lived. They would play those together every time.
Yeah.
I've been to the guy who played Alfalfa. I've been to his grave. He's
You've been there? Oh, okay, man.
he's
Whoa.
at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. He's buried next to his dad, who invented that machine that you put the belt around you and it shakes you, and supposedly you lose weight doing that. I forgot what that thing was called. And
Made me sad about Alfalfa though, that he found out he died so young, and he died.
He was shot over a dog. There's a picture of a dog on his tombstone.
yes, and sometimes people vandalize his grave and they put a circle around the eye. They look
Make
like,
it look like some,
Make him look like Petey.
Petey. Yeah, that's right. Pete's right.
his brother is also buried next to him and his dad. His brother was also a character on Our Gang, and unfortunately, he died tragically. Unfortunately, killed himself. But possibly he's part of the Our Gang Little Rascals curse. I don't know. And then we were talking about Laurel and Hardy. I've been to Laurel's grave. He's buried there at Forest Lawn, not too far away from John Ritter and
John Ritter. Damn.
Did you go to Charlie Chaplin's grave?
No, he's actually buried overseas.
England.
Oh,
I forgot exactly where. To be honest with you,
Oh, Switzerland. Didn't he die? Yeah,
I believe so.
because he was kicked out of this country in the '60s, I think. Yeah, ridiculous.
Damn, Phil, I didn't know that. Well, hey, Phil, how many people do you think have probably gotten an EVP of a famous person, actually, and they just haven't said anything, or have one and don't know it?
On a picture. God, I guess
Probably
anybody
crazy.
who's been to one of those cemeteries probably has done it. and
Somebody
maybe not
has to
even
have
realized.
one.
well, we remember, Zandy, when we went to the Black Dahlia's grave site.
Right.
We were doing EVPs. We got a EVP of a man who says, "Hey, you're good looking," and he was talking to one of the female investigators.
Mm.
Yeah, but we didn't get Black Dahlia to talk.
Well, that was like the best one. But you know what, Paul? You're like an EVP magnet. Like every place we go, you always get them. But one time when we were outside, do you remember that one we heard outside? And it was so clear, like the people were like right next to us when we walked through that park in Sacramento. It was and we had just heard a father and his daughter. You could hear them talk by the pool really clear in the recording, but it was a space that was close to us, not from the echo of that anything. Like it was just amazing that with all the noise, cacophony of all the mixture of bird sounds and wind, that we could actually hear it like right next to us like that. But you always get those, man.
No,
But I'm surprised, Christian, I'm surprised, Christian, you haven't just, I bet you probably have more than you probably even know, man.
Probably so. I don't I don't put headphones on over my videos and examine every little sound. If something pops out, it pops out. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Paul is like really good at the EVPs. I remember the first thing I encountered with you was they're up in Newcastle. You guys did that you invited a bunch of people out. And I remember your wife, Wish, was like, okay, I sense or I see someone by the staircase. And then you immediately said, okay, is there someone here? And you immediately got a response. And I was like, I don't know how she did it, because honestly, I was just like, I don't know if I believe psychics. I don't know if I believe any of this stuff. I mean, I still kind of don't really know, but I don't know how the heck she knew that someone was there and you got a response instantly. I mean, that is incredible. And I filmed that, so we got that on. It's on my channel. Just look for it. I think I called it the Newcastle Ghost Hunt or something like that.
yeah. And Christian, where was that cemetery we went to? And we got an EVP of some woman or something.
Oh, okay. So that's the Hicksville Cemetery, and that is in Galt, and it is right off of Highway 99. So if you take the Arnold Road exit, you can only go one way. And This,
Christian, you were talking about an EVP that you found out at a graveyard in Galt, I think.
yeah. So the Hicksville Cemetery, I think, is probably the most haunted cemetery I've ever been to. I went out there to, I had been out there previous times before, never had an encounter of any kind. Typically, every time I've ever gone, it's by myself. And it was a couple of years ago. It was a summer's evening. Probably a good hour before it got dark, and I thought, you know what? I want to go check out the cemetery. There, I would have sworn that I saw that there was someone that was buried there that had some kind of connection to the Revolutionary War, and it just happened to be that they were affiliated with a fraternal organization for ancestry involving with Revolutionary War. But there's also a person there in that cemetery that is that worked for NASA, and they actually have the NASA logo on their tombstone. And so I got further into the middle of the cemetery where there's trees, and there's a guy there. He's a soldier. He fought in the the 1812 war. I don't even know what war that was.
Against the British, yeah.
Okay, and I'm there. I'm filming it because I'm like I'm gonna make a little video about some of the interesting graves that have these emblems on them and stuff.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I hear what sounds like two people talking in the cemetery, and I just kind of ignore it. And then it just like it seems like it gets louder, but I can't figure out what's going on. So I stopped filming. I'm like looking around. I'm like, okay, there's no other cars parked next to mine. It's starting to get dark, and the only sound I should hear is Highway 99, which is about about a quarter of a mile away from the cemetery. Other than that, it's basically all field. So why do I hear two people talking? I kept hearing it. I mean, kept looking to try to figure out where are these two guys talking. One is louder than the other one. They're having a full conversation. I have no idea what the hell is going on. I eventually figured out that I think it was coming from the corner of the cemetery. So as I started walking, it sounded like the talking started to kind of come down a bit to the point where I never heard any more talking. So okay, I was like, okay, I only know two people that I can contact. So at first I contacted Ryan, and and then I contacted Paul, and I said, hey, there's something crazy. What do you know about this cemetery? And I do know that it was originally owned by the Miwok Indians, and when Hicksville Cemetery did exist, or well, when the city of Hicksville, which doesn't exist anymore, the cemetery is basically all that's left of the town. And they had asked the natives if we could bury our people here, and the natives said only if we're allowed to bury our people here as well. Well, eventually they were denied access to bury their own people there. So I would definitely say that might even qualify for the cemetery possibly being cursed, and much like what we had talked about earlier, Zandine. So anyway, so Paul was like, "Hey, let's go and investigate it." I did a little bit more research about the people buried there. I went there probably 2 weeks after my encounter. Talked to a lady there who has several members of her family buried there, including her daughter. And she didn't specify how her daughter had passed away, but she was very young. And she had talked about how several people would hang out by her tombstone, and they would take pictures of family and stuff like that, and how her image would appear in these photographs. And so I was like, well, that's definitely there's definitely something happening there. That's definitely one that we've got to do an EVP at. And I filmed the whole thing. It was a very breezy day. Myself and Paul, and there's two other investigators that were there as well. I don't remember their names, but I do remember we went to the very far back, because I remember the lady had told me that a member of her family was buried there at the cemetery, but was, for whatever reason, they weren't buried with everyone else. And so we went to their grave. They had no tombstone. They just had a little marker that's given to people, from the cemetery. It's just like like a green cover, and it says like their name. And
Okay.
there was like some like fake flowers, and someone like left some like a pack of Marlboro cigarettes, and there was like a dead bird on the area of where they were buried, which is that's got to be some kind of like ritual type of thing. I don't know what, but I didn't touch it. But we we went up there. Paul was relentless to trying to get something, and it was crazy. Like, basically, Paul was at his wit's end. Like, okay, we're gonna do this one last time. Do you have anything to say? And the recording that we got was it sounded like someone yelling, like in a hallway, but like from a distance. It was so weird.
Wow.
I had never heard anything like that. It was weird. So we went along. There was a guy there, was like a cousin of, I forgot what president. And we thought, well, hey, maybe he's got something to say. He didn't. But then we went to this gal's grave where, her ghost has shown up in photographs. And we spent probably maybe about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, like trying to get something. And then once again, Paul was like, okay, this is your last chance. You have something to say. And it was the most freakiest EP ever. It was a little girl's voice say, I can't remember, she said hi or hello. And that's it. I was like, okay. I'm looking around. The only other woman in the cemetery is one of our other investigators, and she's all the way on the other side, of the cemetery. I'm just like, and it's breezy and just like, how do you explain that? You just
man. Dig it.
So if you
Paul,
want
good for that too. You and Paul teamed up. Paul's good for that, man.
yeah. So if you want to watch that video, it's on my YouTube channel. It's called.
I want to check it out.
I just have it titled as the Hicksville Cemetery, and it is
okay. I think
incredible.
Okay.
No, we're gonna end up wrapping this up. We want to thank you, Christian. You've been a great guest, really fascinating. Like I said earlier, I think we could probably talk for a couple days on all this stuff. But I encourage anybody who happens to watch this podcast, which aren't many at the moment, you want to treat, go ahead and check out Grave Time with Christian on YouTube. He's got how many videos do you have out now on up there?
I think close to 250, maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I subscribe, so I get the notification when they come out, and I always find them interesting, even if I'm not watching. I have it playing in the background and just listen to you because you're well spoken, you're knowledgeable, and I always find interesting the different places that you go to. And like you were talking about with Rodney Dangerfield, I thought you expressed yourself pretty well with that. Here's somebody you grew up admiring. I mean, you got his Easy Money right next to you on video. He made you laugh. He made me laugh my entire life. And here's a guy that was completely inaccessible to somebody like us while he's alive. But now you can just go sit next to where the man's at anytime you want, any day. And it's a weird thing. Death is a weird thing, and our memorialization of it is something we
You gave him a lot of respect. You gave him a lot of respect.
That's funny you say that, because it's his whole thing, his whole catch line was, I get no respect.
No respect.
Well, buried right next to him is Ferret Fawcett. So I mean, like,
that's a lot of respect.
Have respect, okay?
Just looking at him, you laugh, man. I mean, he can make you laugh. Just, man, the dude is like,
Christian, we could sit here with a week and picking your brains and just make a whole week video. You're a fantastic guest.
Well, thank you. I'd love to come back, and we can talk about anything else, whatever, but I do appreciate it. So thank you, Phil. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Sandine. I really do appreciate it. It's quite an honor.
Christian.
And best of luck and best of blessings to you guys in your endeavors. And
sure.
I really do appreciate it. My hat's off to you guys.
See you in the field, man.
Definitely.
Thank you, Christian. Thanks, fellas. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good night.
Good night.